Survival of the Sickest by Sharma Allam is an interesting novel that explains how diseases can sometimes help certain people survive depending on their environment or genetics. This novel explores the evolutionary change of organisms from parasites to humans and how modern medical techniques are changing to seek new ways for people to live longer. Hemochromatosis is a hereditary disease that disrupts the way the body metabolizes iron. This is when there is an excessive amount of iron that is being absorbed by the small intestine. The iron absorption rate is higher than the normal rate of a normal human. This can be maintained by the process of bloodletting. This is when barbers, once called surgeons, cut a person's skin and let blood exit, reducing the iron in the body, therefore reducing hemochromatosis. Iron had a significance with the bubonic plague in the 14th century as well. Rats that carry disease come into land and the bacteria inside them infects humans. Humans with the iron richness in the body tends to attract the bacteria. Jews, on the other hand, were malnourished, did not have enough iron in them to have bacteria to be attracted from, thus they survived. Diabetes is a chronic disease that is the most common disease in the world. Normally, when a person eats glucose, the glucose is broken down by the help of the insulin produced in the pancreas. People with diabetes either do not produce insulin that lowers glucose levels properly, or no insulin is produced at all. The Ice Age decreased the human population tremendously. Fortunately, some survived because maybe they have genes that make them resistant to cold. We have ways to react to cold weather instead of freezing. Our body is constantly producing heat by either shivering or producing brown cells. One animal that can make itself frozen during migration is a wood frog. When winter comes, they freeze everything in their body using tons of sugar in the bloodstream, which triggers the freezing, sort of like an antifreeze. When it melts, it goes back to normal in the spring. The sun can be harmful by giving someone a sunburn, yet it's beneficial because exposure to sun helps the body create vitamin D, which is used for the growth and maintenance of bones and destroys body's reserve of folic acid. The way that most people get vitamin D is from sun exposure. The UV light from the sun converts cholesterol and cell membranes into vitamin D. Wearing sunblock prevents your body to make vitamin D. The skin also helps in the protection of the folic acid stored in the body. Your eyes detect the sun and send a signal to the pituitary gland, which then sends signals to the melanocytes, which makes more melanin. Wearing sunglasses can increase the chance of a sunburn. Most humans cannot digest anything dairy without getting an unpleasant digestive reaction, but some can because of a mutation in the DNA. Fava beans have been eaten and used by different countries for a very long time. Favism is an inherited sex-linked enzyme deficiency carried by many people. When people eat fava beans, the symptoms are so severe, however, it can prevent malaria. The beans make the red blood cells less hospitable to malarial parasites because a drug called primaquine stresses the red blood cell, and there is less G6PD enzyme. On a side note, plants are full of chemicals that harm their predators, including animals and some humans. One example is the bitterness of plants that warn predators that the plant is toxic. The fava beans therefore has its protection in being toxic to some animals and humans, but can prevent malaria. Parasites have found their own ways to evolve and learn ways to control their host brains and evolve quickly. One example of a parasite that does so is the guinea worm. The worm, which is in the water fleas, are drunk up by humans from ponds. The parasite, now inside the human, grows and multiplies in the small intestine. When a female worm is fertilized, it will move towards the skin and secrete an acid that burns the skin. This makes the humans pour cold water on the blister, which lets the female secrete its larva into the water stream. The guinea worm has found ways to use the human body to reproduce and evolve. There are other examples involving controlling the brain by parasites to other organisms, but the guinea worm is the worst in humans. An experiment by Dr. Edward Jenner involved a milkmaid that got cowpox who was resistant to smallpox. Cowpox acts like a vaccine to smallpox because cowpox is similar in shape to smallpox. When cowpox is in the body, antibodies are made to fight off not only cowpox but smallpox. This causes change in the genes on DNA strands, which is a mutation. Some mutations can be good, while some can be detrimental, like from exposure to radiation and powerful chemicals, including smoking. The mutations cause different proteins to produce, but only 3% of the genome contains instructions for proteins, and 97% of the genome contains non-coding DNA. The non-coding DNA genes turn coding genes on and off. Epigenetics is the study of inheritable changes that occur without the alteration of DNA sequence. The gene expression of a child can be defined by the mother. This could be reason for the birth defects and child obesity. A mother's eating habit can affect the additional methyl-markers in the child, which can result in either good or bad way. This is called methylation. Methyl-markers bind to a gene and change the way the gene expresses itself. Hypermethylation can cause a massive buildup, which becomes cancer. Children with cancer has cancer cells that have numerous amount of telomeres in the DNA that are uncontrollably adding telomeres to the end of the chromosomes. Cancer cells ignore apoptosis and go through mitosis very rapidly with many mutations, thus immortal. Cells in progeria and aging disorder in children are programmed to break down similar to normal aging in humans.